is Rick Prokop at Piano Power Lessons. We're going to continue on now with the Chopin Waltz, Op.64 No. 2 in C-sharp minor. So today we're going to look at the last 8 bars from here to here of this 32-bar opening section. And if we were to split it up into 8-bar sections, the first 8 bars is characterized by these descending sixths. And then the second 8 bars is characterized by these 2-note slurs that happen all over the place, etc. And then the third 8 is a return to the sixth. All right, and then when he gets to the last 8, he wants to keep this these 2-note ascending figures happening. So he wants this to be reminiscent of that. This fourth 8 to be reminiscent of the second 8 is what I'm trying to say. And I first want to look at the harmonies as compared, the harmonies of this section as compared to the second section. And they're very different. And the first different thing he does after coming out of this G-sharp 7th here is to go to a C-sharp 7th, a dominant 7th on C-sharp. So now he has this. And then after that, he goes to another dominant 7th, F-sharp 7th. And this is followed with yet another 7th chord, a B7th. So there's a pattern happening here. He goes down 5 from a G-sharp 7th to C-sharp 7th, and he goes down another 5 to an F-sharp 7th, and he goes down another 5 to a B7th, and then he's going to go down another 5 to an E7th. And this type of progression is called a circle of fifths. And we'll get back to the circle of fifths later on, and we'll even do it at the piano, but I want to continue on. So all of the circular motion is bringing us to the 4 chord, which is F-sharp minor. And then from that 4 chord, he can play a second inversion 1 chord, C-sharp minor, and then it's 5 chord, G-sharp 7th, and then back to C-sharp, and we're done. Now, once you're at the 4 chord, F-sharp minor, there are various ways to get back to the 1 chord, C-sharp minor. So one can go F-sharp, and then G-sharp 7th, and then C-sharp minor. In other words, 4, 5, 1. There's another chord that could be used instead of the 4 chord in a minor key, and that's the 2 chord. And this would be true in a major key also. Instead of 4, 5, 1, you could have 2, 5, 1. Well, what's the 2 chord in C-sharp minor? It's D-sharp, F-sharp, A, C-sharp. It's called D-sharp minor 7th flat 5. So instead of having the 4 chord, we could have the 2 chord, followed by the 5 chord, G-sharp 7th, and then the 1 chord. Another option is to delay getting to the G-sharp 7th, the 5 chord, by putting in a second inversion 1 chord. For example, from F-sharp minor, we'd have this. And now here's C-sharp minor with a G-sharp in the bass. Hear the difference? Here's F-sharp minor, going to just C sharp minor with a C sharp in the bass. But if I do second inversion, it sounds like this. Now the G sharp's in the bass, and that's anticipating the G sharp seventh that comes, and which was delayed, and then finally the C sharp. And we can repeat the same exact thing with the 2 chord now in the right hand. So instead of having F sharp, A, C sharp here, which is the 4 chord, and an F sharp in the bass, I can put a D sharp under that in the right hand and have D sharp, F sharp, A, C sharp, keep the F sharp in the bass, and then go to my second inversion 1 chord, and then the 5 chord, G sharp 7th, and then back to the 1 chord. Well, what does Chopin do? Well, he uses both. It's, you know, this Chopin, there was nothing remotely like this written prior to Chopin, as far as his use of harmonies, this bell-like sound, use of 13th chords. And the only similarity to Chopin was the pianist, the jazz pianist, Bill Evans, who kind of, in the same way, came out of the bebop era and with this incredibly coloristic way of playing that was very much like Chopin. So here's what Chopin does. There's the F sharp minor, right? I have the F sharp, the C sharp, and the A, and now here comes the D sharp. Let me do that again. And there is the chord, right there. So we have F sharp, A. I'm sorry, F sharp, D sharp, A, C sharp, and then the F sharp again there. So it's very subtle. Now we're down here, and then there's your G sharp 7th. Now how does it get to the F sharp minor? In other words, the 4 chord, combination 4 chord, 2 chord here, from an E 7th. Well, E 7th is E, G sharp, B, D. And we have, look, E, B, G sharp, D, and this is the C sharp up here is E 13th, which comes down to the 5th of E. All right, so we have E, G sharp, B, D sharp, essentially. And then look at what happens in the bass. And all of those other notes of the E 7th are still heard. So now instead of having E, G sharp, B, D, we have E sharp, G sharp, B, D ringing in our ears. Here's the D right here that I'm playing in my upper register, but all of those notes are there. So what is this E sharp, G sharp, B, D now? Well, it's a diminished 7th chord, and we've never really gotten into diminished 7th chords. We've only gone as far as tritones and how they function and how dominant 7th function. But a diminished 7th chord functions also as a dominant 7th. So I have E sharp, G sharp, B, and then the D. What if I put a C sharp below all of that? Now I now have the root, C sharp, this is the 3rd, the G sharp's the 5th, the B is the 7th, and the D is the flatted 9th. And what does that resolve to? C sharp 7th to F sharp minor. Okay? So all this is happening very subtly. So to finish it out, I'll just put here a D sharp minor 7th, flat 5. Knowing that the 4 and the 2 are interchangeable, okay? Then down here you have your C sharp minor, just a straight C sharp minor chord in second inversion. The G sharp's on the bottom. And it's not until the third beat that you get the G sharp 7th. And then the C sharp minor. And there you have it. Now let's go down to the piano and play some of these chords. And I'll try to keep it as close to the context of the melody as I can, but that's not important. You should just see what the chords look like, and then after understanding the chords in their simple form, you can apply it then to the music that's here. So let's look down at the keyboard. So let's start with the G sharp 7th, this. Okay? Root, 3rd, 5th, 7th, root. All right, next chord C sharp 7th, so that's C sharp, E sharp, G sharp, B, and that's melody at this point is, okay, over that chord. All right, next chord is F sharp 7th. That's C sharp, well, F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, E. Root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. And the melody at that point is, okay, and then B 7th, B, D sharp, F sharp, A. The melody at that point is, okay, then your next chord is going to be E 7th in second inversion. We have E, G sharp, B, D, okay, E 7th. The melody at that point is, and then we have this, the E 7th becomes the diminished 7th as the melody is going like this. All right? And that chord is a C sharp 7th with a flat 9. All right, here's the E 7th. There's that diminished 7th. I pull it up to here. It's the same diminished 7th. I'm just pulling this D up to here. Put the C sharp on the bottom. That's why this diminished 7th is functioning as a C sharp 7th. All right, so we have the E 7th. We have with the melody up here, and then the diminished 7th, and then the F sharp minor, and then the addition of the D sharp, because it's the 2 chord at this point, D sharp, F sharp, A, C sharp, and then in the next measure we go to just a straight C sharp minor with the G sharp in the bass, so it's second inversion, and the melody at that point is, all right, and then we have, I have a G sharp way down here in the bass, here's the 7th, here's the 3rd, here's the 5th, and then we finish on C sharp minor, E, G sharp, C sharp. Okay, so that's important that you understand what's going on there. So in the next lesson, we'll work on playing the notes, and I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, thanks again for joining me here at Piano Power Lessons, and have a great day.